Hey, everybody. Welcome to Fridays with Steve. This is actually well timed after a couple of weeks off. I'm sure a lot of folks here if you're in the United States, have maybe taken a little bit of time, early July, good weather, 4th of July holiday. And I did the same. And the reason it's good timing is Microsoft's fiscal year is 6 months off from the calendar. It runs July 1st through June 30th. And so this feels like a great time to kind of take this theme of what transpired in FY24, kind of how we here at Apex think about engaging with Microsoft, trying to stay on top of things, and share a little bit of my thoughts with you on FY24. I think at the end, I've gotten some glimpses into priorities, ways as a partner we'll be looking to really utilize and amplify our relationship with Microsoft, and frankly how that impacts customers as well. So what I did is I took examples of engagements, of investments that are made in this ecosystem, opportunities, and just went back and grabbed kind of one per month. And we'll use that as our backdrop for looking back at the year that was. So Microsoft has started FY25. It's always challenging, whether it was my time as an employee or now. The first half of the fiscal year, you're in calendar year 24, but you call it fiscal 25. So that's confusing. The second half of the year is always nice because the two match, right? So Microsoft is starting fiscal year 25 and are getting ready to make the investments and kick off their engagement with the ecosystem. I'll leave it to you. See if you can guess what the mantra is for FY25. So let's go all the way back to July of last year. So one of the things that you have to think about when you engage with Microsoft, whether it's as a partner or a customer, is end of service, end of life, roadmaps, and what that means for the tools that you may use, the infrastructure you may have in your environment. And so as a partner, we've been getting a lot of information. If you're in that database space around SQL Server 2014, how it's going end of life here in Q3 of the calendar year. And so these are useful tools when you think about product lifecycle. Microsoft's interesting in the sense that they really do a lot of work around end of support, giving folks both a lot of visibility as well as a lot of time. But no matter how much they give us, there's always going to be those edge cases around, applications that were written to a certain spec that just can't be moved for one reason or another, or a level of good enough within an environment. ATMs out there, I think there are probably some still running OS2, right, from IBM. It found its niche. They made it rock solid. It does exactly what an ATM is supposed to do. And so why would you monkey with it, right? So, this is an important way to think about your environment, whether it's in the cloud or whether it's on-prem, around these kind of timelines and timeframes. That said, just in case you didn't know, as a customer, even when things go end of life or end of support, it's not 100% in the sense that I've seen agreements between large organizations and Microsoft, say back in the Windows 2000, Windows 98 kind of days, because those came end of life during my tenure at Microsoft, where large customers said, yeah, no, we need to support it. And Microsoft said, all right, how about $12 kajillion? And the company was like, okay. And so then Microsoft supported it, right? There's always negotiations to be had. And certainly if the application is critical enough, the platform is useful or important enough, there's always a deal to be had. All right, so let's back up to August of of last year and talk a little bit about sustainability. So Microsoft, especially with everybody's march into the cloud, thinks a lot about sustainability, thinks a lot about their environmental impact, their carbon impact. And frankly, it's only getting bigger. There was a period of time, I think, between gaming and GPUs and crypto mining. We had some concerns about the environment. I think all of us probably should have those same concerns about the computing horsepower necessary for generative AI, supporting these large language models. One of the reasons, just as an aside, if you've ever wondered, Copilot pricing, at least right now, feels very different. And I think one of the reasons it feels different, it feels more expensive given the ratio of like what you pay for, say, a seat of business premium or something like that, is that Copilot has this huge compute footprint, right? And so we're talking facility costs and people costs and energy costs and cooling costs associated specifically with Copilot, because that's the customer manifestation of all the work they're doing in their data centers, crawling all this data. I think, and I'm not privy to the Microsoft books. We'll get a glance here at a high level, in a couple of weeks when they announce results. I'm sure the Azure business is just fine. I'm not going to shed a tear for Microsoft. I have a feeling that their costs have absolutely spiked based off of all the work with the guys at OpenAI and now Copilot, and that really impacts their carbon footprint and their sustainability. And Microsoft as an organization has really put a lot of this front and center. This is going to be an interesting space to watch. I think one of the less acknowledged challenges around generative AI is energy consumption. A lot of us fear, robots and cyborgs. Perhaps more of our concern should be just around the power grid and energy consumption. And so if you're an organization, whether you're an end customer organization or a partner organization that has this top of mind, or whether you're Microsoft, that from a good community member to it's great for marketing spectrum, wherever you place them on that spectrum, if it's something that they think about, I think they have some challenges ahead. All right, so let's go back to September and talk a little bit about learning and training. And so, the history of Microsoft education, learning centers, and I'm trying to remember all the acronyms that went with, all the training partners, and if you're here in the Minneapolis area and old like me, you remember a place like Benchmark where you went and took training, has been that it's always been a business to Microsoft. And I think over the last few years, we've seen some evolution where that is less the case. I am honestly impressed with Microsoft Learn. I'm impressed with the investments that they make. Oftentimes, I talk about, if you're a technical person and you're looking for resources, docs.microsoft.com, everything really centralized there, easy to read. You can even export it if you want to, print it out and kill some trees. That goes back to that last slide, I guess. And Microsoft Learn has become that on the learning side. Start there. Yes, there's some, additional sites. And if you're earning badges and things like that, it'll send you other places. If you're an enterprise customer, you have some, like ESI, the Enterprise Skills Initiative, you have some other places to go, but everything really starts with Microsoft Learn, learning paths, what comes before, what comes next, pathways for, getting the education you need, learning about the things that are impactful to you, pursuing certification as a partner. That skilling element is one of the things we have to think about. Our modern work designation relies on us having, a number of people, correctly trained and having passed certification exams and things like that. I think this year, we're going to take the opportunity and prove ourselves in the security space as well. And so Microsoft Learn is an absolutely key resource when it comes to thinking about those things, pursuing those certifications, pursuing those badges, getting the learning that you need. Again, it's come a long way. If you were to have asked me, I'm trying to do the math quickly in my head, 25, 28 years ago, what did Steve do in this space? It was my TechNet CDs, Alta Vista searches, and a printout of a not even a knowledge base, or a white paper on how to do clustering with a little technology called Wolfpack. So it's come a long way. There's probably still room for improvement. There's probably too much spread and bloat when it comes to learning and education, but everything starts with learn.microsoft.com. All right, so let's rewind to October, some of the headlines that were coming out September and October around security and threat intelligence. And so, Microsoft, because of their footprint, because of the diversity of their customers, because of the diversity of their geographies and their data centers, is in an absolutely pivotal spot for watching what's going on around the globe. They do an amazing job of spotting things very early, very quickly, informing customers, working with government and non-government organizations to react to threats, to help prosecute criminals. And the threat intelligence blog is really a great way to stay on top of these things. Obviously, if you're using the security tools, whether it's Sentinel as a SIEM or whether you're using MCAS or Defender, those tools have, this intelligence built in, this responsiveness built in, but also just as an industry pro, staying on top of these things can be very, very useful. Whether it's ransomware, whether it is desktop or server threats, whether it's, breaches and security incidents around the globe, Microsoft is doing a better job, I think, now than they have historically, of taking all that information in and then regurgitating it to the rest of us. Being able to not just react and protect their pieces of the infrastructure, but also to help the rest of us protect ours. All right, so let's rewind to November and talk about the security blog. So that last one was threat intelligence. This is more focused on Microsoft's tools in the space, improvements to products, best practices, how to work through an evolution of your security posture, whether it's, taking yourself from simple passwords to, a passwordless multi-factor, highly secure environment, right? What are the steps? How do you go through it all? Sort of tips and tricks for what to apply. We do a lot of work with Entra. We do a lot of work on the identity and threat protection side with our customers. And one of the things that we bring to the table is those things we see across many, many customers. Well, we have a few less customers than Microsoft, and so they bring an even greater amount of insight at a global level when it comes to really looking at all these security products and security incidents, and then turning them into information and best practices and go-dos for all of us in the industry, right? So whether it's security or compliance, the Microsoft Security blog is a huge reference in this space. All right, so let's go back to December. And the reason I picked this one for December is it's hard to believe that this was really kind of, here comes Copilot, here comes Bing Chat Enterprise, M365 Chat, excuse me. It's gone really far, really fast, right? Just about 6 months ago, here was some of the information we were presenting to customers. Microsoft was presenting to us. You'll see a couple slides as I wrap up in May and June, really showing where we've come, right? So I also think this is actually a pretty useful chart. One of the things that I've noticed with our customers is early in the co-pilot discussion, they might equate it more with a Bing chat or a chat GPT kind of formulation versus this enterprise. It's your data. It's asking about your projects. Hey, Copilot, show me all the Apex projects where we assigned a project manager and held weekly status reports and show me some of the best examples of the communications we had with clients. Not saying that prompt would work, but just trying to say that it's in the context of your business versus, LLMs and web data or the public internet to bring things home. It also talks about virtual agents and the OpenAI service. One of the things that Microsoft has provided, and I think I left a developer slide in here too, even though that's really not 100% our lane, is that they've also sort of created API endpoints for all this stuff, right? By putting it in Azure, it allows the rest of us, who don't work for the ChatGPT team or aren't OpenAI employees to have access in sort of a programmatic way to all of that intelligence. So it was just about 6-7 months ago that this was the level of slide we were showing to people. And so just keep that in mind as we advance towards June. Speaking of developers, looking back to January, the Dev Center and the Office Developer blogs, I picked this part of the world simply because this is, very adjacent to modern work. It's very adjacent to sort of those WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get kind of tools, business analyst development versus, writing things in C# or assembler. Lots of resources in this space. We have great partnerships with folks like SNP, who are amazing development shops. And so one of the things that we try to do with all of our customers is, we don't want to do everything. If you do everything, you kind of do nothing. Jack of all trades, master of none. Insert your favorite, boomer analogy here. But what we do have is great partnerships. And so if it's in a space where we've consciously chosen to not focus our first person efforts, we have great partnerships. And so, in this dev space with a partner like SNP, we can bring all of these capabilities to bear. And here are some resources and kind of a look back to where we were in January with the kind of resources and investments and communication that we were seeing from Microsoft in this space. So looking back to February, one of the things that Microsoft does, not as much as they used to, is sort of the public in-person conference. And we could probably have a whole Fridays with Steve thinking about the utility or non-utility of in-person conferences, right? Are they boondoggles? Are they super valuable? Are they somewhere in between? And so I just wanted to highlight that, there's still a lot of them out there, both first party from Microsoft as well as third party conferences. A lot of them have a ton of value. I highlighted this M365 community conference because we actually got a tremendous amount of value from it, from meeting new customers to ideas for new strategic directions for us, new solution areas, or sort of practices that we wanted to build and offer out to the market. This one was really, really useful to us. And so they still exist. There's still an element of fun to them, the Swan and Dolphin the gigantic resort at Disney. Not necessarily the worst place to be for a few days, and they can be super, super useful. One of the best practices I would share, and one of the things we do here at Apex is the trip report, right? When I send people in my organization to a conference, to a work event, that requires travel, I just kind of land an extra expectation on them, which is, I'd like to, as much as possible, have our whole team attend this event through you, right? And not, you don't have to, live broadcast your whole event and wear a body camera. But what I do want is, information brought back to the organization. I think gone are the days of the pure conference boondoggle. At least here at Apex, they're gone. Simply because that just the world has kind of moved on from that. And so, we invested in sending people to this conference. They had a great experience, lots of knowledge and education, but at the same time came back and made our organization better. So they're still out there. There's a couple fewer from a Microsoft first party standpoint. There's going to be a Reimagine Ignite here in a few months in Chicago. We miss, as a partner, just speaking candidly, we really miss the Inspire event. I'm old enough to remember it being WPC. I'm really old enough and Minnesota enough to remember Stampede on the Great Plains Dynamic side. Great events, tons of utility, have been missing for about 5 years. There was kind of hope that we would have an opportunity for a partner conference in person this summer. It didn't materialize. I was able to reallocate that money in my budget because I was 100% prepared to invest in my team representing Apex at the conference, as well as investing in bringing back great information. So think about those best practices. It's still worth the investment in some spaces. Just make sure you get the most out of it. So now I think we kind of have a progression of talking about some product blogs and the kind of innovation around some of the tools that are especially near and dear to my heart. So there's a huge Viva suite out there, and if you ask me, if you ask our CEO, I think there's still a massive opportunity for ROI with customers, for partners like Apex being able to build a great business, for Microsoft to really make an impact in this space around the things that sit in Viva, from goal setting, goal management, KPIs. We're moving into that space now and fully in our next fiscal year, starting January 1st, right? Employee communications. I think I may have mentioned on a recent Fridays with Steve that in the early days of Teams, I was fully on board with, hey, this will be your digital intercom and broad communication tool, and it didn't really pan out as we thought it would, right? It doesn't fit that mode, and so there are things like Viva Engage to do those kinds of things. The broadcast message, the broad organization and extra organization, communication and collaboration. Viva Learning, LMS, learning management systems, something that I got to know pretty intimately in the company I founded before working here at Apex. There's a lot that's built into Viva Learning. And if you're already down this path, if you're already, spending a lot of time in that Teams environment, it just manifests itself right there. There's a ton here. And it's one of those places where if you're an enterprise customer, or, depending on the licensing plan, depending on the investments you've made, we see a lot of seats of Viva go unused. And one of the things that we've built up our muscle around is helping customers take that software off the shelf and put it to good use. I've always talked about, one of our strategies for helping customers invest, say, in our services or our products and tools, is to say, hey, here's how we're gonna come in and we're gonna do this, but we're gonna retire this support contract, these two platforms, and this monthly fee, right? Like using consolidation, using best of breed kind of approaches to, maybe even use things you already own. And in Viva, that is a big deal. We see a lot of unused seats of Viva. So I wanted to highlight the kind of communication and information that Microsoft puts out around this amazing solution. So obviously Teams is near and dear to our heart. It is it's a beast unto itself trying to keep up, right? Multiple releases, it's cloud software, even if it doesn't feel like cloud software, because I'm old enough to still want a desktop client versus a web client. And so constant innovation, really want to stay on top of it, whether it's the Teams blog, whether it's the roadmap, whether it is choosing the ring, or how fast you want to stay tied to new releases and things like that, the constant point of integration, the third-party apps that are available, plus the multiple platforms, right? We've got certified Teams devices, we've got Teams rooms, we've got the web client and the desktop client. I and then now my marketing director have forced Apex to think about the Mac client versus the Windows client. There's a lot to stay on top of. And so the Teams blog and the communications around Teams, super, super important. This is obviously an area where we spend a lot of our time, and, we'd love to be a partner and help you navigate this world. So then, here is more information. I obviously love Teams so much. I wanted to reflect on it a couple of times to say, here's just 2 months worth of information coming out, right? From backgrounds and landmarks in dial tone users to integrating something like shifts, right? Frontline and Viva. Really interesting plays when it comes to Teams. We actually are in the process of onboarding a new customer that has a really interesting, mix of licensing. They've got a lot of frontline workers, a lot of factory floor and stuff like that, but they've done a lot of Teams licensing for them, because what they're doing, even if these aren't people sitting at a laptop or a desktop, they're really utilizing Teams on mobile devices, on that factory floor, to be a communication vehicle, to be a requesting time off, to, searching for HR information kind of vehicle. And so there's a world of just Teams information coming through the fire hose. You can see what it looks like across a couple of months. And then if you want to go even deeper, we focus on calling, meetings, and devices, as a big part of what we bring to market. And so Microsoft even clicks down and says, hey, specifically in this world, what's new? And this is an example of 1 month, from new devices and phones to innovation across different licensing SKUs and sort of form factors, whether it's phone or meetings. So you can see how fast this environment moves. It's one of the key things we bring to all our managed customers and even our CSP customers, which is, hey, we'll stay on top of all this stuff, and we will work with you to make sure you have the knowledge, and then draw the connecting lines between, what they're bringing out and what's important to you, right? So maybe, you've been waiting on a contact center, and we know your needs, and now we see that contact center X is certified for Teams. Hey, let's finally have that discussion about retiring, that old standalone PBX-based contact center and moving it into Teams, because that's where your organization is spending a lot of their time. So this is just an example of 1 month's worth of innovation, not in Teams, but just in that calling, meetings, and devices space. And so I live by this list every month. Our service delivery, as well as our sales and marketing teams, all really take notice of how fast this innovation goes. And then I wanted to close with the Copilot piece in June. So June is the end of Microsoft's fiscal year. And so we've just crossed over it here recently. So if you remember the slide that had a flow chart with like 2 decisions on it, this is what Copilot looks like now, right? It's all over the place. It's being integrated into every application. Yesterday on a kickoff call, Microsoft, in the old days, had this unifying vision of a computer on every desktop. Really kind of that, early 80s through 2000 kind of vision, singular vision at Microsoft. Now it's a Copilot for every person, a Copilot for every role, a Copilot for every situation, right? From the role or the type of worker you are, to the platform, to even the industry, right? Microsoft doing a lot of talking about how do you take Copilot and make it better for, say, manufacturers or people in the finance industry. And so you can see just from December of 23 to June of 24, how different this landscape looks. And it's a lot to keep up with. There's great ways for you to keep up with it. But having a partner like Apex is also a great strategy in this space. And so, just like Teams devices and calling and meetings, what's new? We get these what's new in Copilot now every month, right? This is where you can really see how fast this space is moving. Adding it to Planner, for example, in May. It's being added everywhere across the board. And that's really, I told you I'd close with the mantra for FY25. It's all about Copilot. It's all about generative AI. It's all about bringing it as something useful to as close to all of us as they can get. It'll probably always be many or most, but the vision really seems to be coming all, that there is a place for Copilot. There's a place for generative AI in all of the work that we do. And so this is just the innovation in 1 month. I wanted to close on how far Copilot has come and how fast the innovation is going. Like I said, December of 23, this is, June of 24. And so we're poised to help. 25 years in this space, lots of visibility to lots of customers and lots of projects, lots of electric fences that we can tell you not to touch, as well as best practices, as well as ways to maximize the ROI of any investment you make. And so reach out to me, sthompson@apexdigital.com. Visit our website around hybrid work, book a meeting, gather information, and let us know how we can help you. And with that, we'll see you next time on Fridays with Steve.